Hi, welcome back. Ready for a new horror story? I'm sure you are. Let's get started. The Last Call. The night air was crisp, carrying the distant hum of city life as four friends, Mark, Jason, Emily, and Sarah, stepped out of a taxi in front of the Black Raven. A neon sign flickered above the entrance, casting a dull, reddish glow on the wet pavement. It was an unassuming place, tucked between two abandoned buildings. There were no lines outside, no bouncers checking IDs, just a single heavy door that seemed out of place, too old, too weathered, like it belonged to a forgotten time. Mark, always the thrill seeker, grinned. So, this is it? The legendary underground club? Jason, the rational one, adjusted his leather jacket. It looks different from what I expected. Are we sure it's even open? Emily, the most cautious of the group, wrapped her arms around herself. I don't know, guys. It feels off. Sarah, the free spirit, rolled her eyes. Come on, Emily. We've been to way sketchier places. Let's just go inside, have one drink, and if it sucks, we leave. Deal. Emily hesitated but eventually nodded. Mark pushed open the door, revealing a long, dark hallway lined with old sconces that flickered as if struggling to stay lit. The moment they stepped inside, the air changed, thick, stale, and metallic, like rusted iron. The bass of the music was faint but steady, pulsing through the walls. They followed the sound, passing a lone bartender who stood eerily still behind the counter. He didn't greet them, didn't even look up. His face was shadowed under the dim lighting, but something about him sent a chill down Sarah's spine. The club itself was surreal. The dance floor was filled with people, but they moved strangely, too fluid, too synchronized, as if they weren't dancing, but performing. The DJ, an unnervingly thin man in a black suit, never lifted his head. His fingers moved over the mixer like a puppet, controlled by unseen strings. Jason leaned toward Emily. Something's off. You think? She muttered, gripping her purse strap tightly. They moved toward the bar where Mark, unfazed as ever, ordered drinks. The bartender finally moved, his fingers sliding across the counter in slow, deliberate motions. When he finally spoke, his voice was wrong, deep, distorted, like it was coming from an old broken radio.
You shouldn't be here.
Sarah froze. Excuse me? The bartender didn't look up. It's almost midnight. That's when the real guests arrive. Mark scoffed. All right, buddy. Nice horror movie line, but we're just here for a good time. The bartender finally lifted his head. His eyes were completely white. No pupils, no irises, just blank, endless voids. Before anyone could react, the lights cut out. For a second, everything was silent. Too silent. Then the music returned, but it was different now. Slower. Twisted. The bass was replaced with something else. Something alive, like a heartbeat. Emily grabbed Jason's arm. We need to leave, now. But when they turned toward the exit, the heavy door they had come through was gone. Not locked. Gone. There was only a wall now, and the people on the dance floor had stopped moving. They were all facing them. Mark's voice was unsteady. What the hell is this? One by one, the clubgoers smiled, wide, unnatural grins stretching too far up their cheeks. Their eyes melted away, leaving only black, gaping holes. Then they moved, fast. Sarah screamed as one of them lunged, its limbs elongating unnaturally. Jason yanked her back, and they ran. They burst through a side door, finding themselves in a narrow corridor that pulsed like a living thing. The walls were damp, almost flesh-like, and a low, guttural sound vibrated through the air. Emily was sobbing. What is this place? Mark tried another door, but behind it was just a brick wall. The lights overhead flickered again. And then they saw her, At the end of the hallway stood a woman in a red dress. Her back was turned, her long black hair cascading down unnaturally straight. She whispered something, low, rhythmic, in a language none of them knew. Jason swallowed hard. We go back, now. But as he took a step back, the woman twitched. Then her head snapped around, without her body moving. Her eyes were black voids, her mouth unnaturally wide. And when she opened it, she screamed. The wall shook, and from behind them, the faceless creatures poured in, their fingers twisting into sharp claws. Mark yanked open a vent cover near the floor. Get in! One by one, they crawled through, Jason kicking the cover shut behind them. The tunnel was tight, filled with the smell of rot. Behind them, something was following. A raspy voice echoed through the metal. You cannot leave. They reached another grate, kicking it open and tumbling into the alley. The cold night air hit them like a slap. They were outside. But when they turned around, the Black Raven was gone. In its place stood a crumbling, abandoned building, covered in graffiti and rot, as if it had been deserted for decades. Emily clutched her stomach, gasping. We were just in there. It was real, right? Jason was shaking. I don't. Then Sarah grabbed Mark's arm. Her voice was trembling. Where's Jason? They all turned. Jason was standing completely still. His eyes were slowly darkening, the whites fading into black. He smiled. Not his normal smile. Something else was smiling through him. Mark took a shaky step back. Jason. Jason let out a breath that wasn't his. I told you. Then, in the bartender's voice, he whispered,
You shouldn't have come.
The street lights flickered. And then, Jason was gone. Only the cold, empty street remained. Somewhere in the distance, the bass of a song played again. The Black Raven was open once more, waiting for new guests.